The tattoos that ghost stories left on me were all text-based. This was inscribed when the membership granted by the blue dragon mascot at the theme park burned away. According to Braun, it symbolized special authorization, granting a type of access pass. The other was in Chinese. This appeared when the lodge caretaker's contract from the serial killer ghost story, the Hanji burning over my skin. However, because I lacked the qualifications, it was nothing more than a symbol with no real function. If I had to choose one to enhance,
I'll be in your care.
the tattooist leaned in to examine the tattoo I had pointed to. The reason for this choice was simple. It's better to increase the range of abilities I can use. It's unfortunately almost guaranteed that I'll be venturing into various ghost stories in the future. This means relying on just one superpower won't cut it. Even Chief Lizard had near-death experiences despite his strength. It's clearly not enough. It's better to have a variety of abilities for different scenarios. Strengthening a single ability halfway wouldn't be as effective. It's more practical to make use of an unused tattoo. With Moonlight Tattoo Shop, I didn't have to worry about stepping on a landmine. The shop was extremely benevolent, so it didn't grant harmful powers. I could trust that the lodge caretaker wouldn't suddenly appear to strangle me. I glanced at the Latin tattoo. Thinking back to the emotional bond I seemed to have formed with that mascot, covering up this tattoo felt wrong. That's a warning sign. As a dedicated reader of the something unknown, my instincts told me to avoid tampering with something that carried emotional resonance.
It's finally starting!
And so I made my choice, and the tattooist began her work. When she tried to show me several design options, I stopped her.
Oh, please just proceed with what you think works best.
If I wanted the best results, I had to trust the professional.
I trust in your skill, Tattooist Nim.
The tattooist's eyes gleamed momentarily before they confidently gestured for me to lie back on the chair. She also handed Braun to me to hold tightly.
Does she think I'm a stress relief toy? What an amusing yet rude misunderstanding!
The tattooist donned intricate steampunk-style goggles and began operating an enormous tattoo machine. Are tattoo machines normally that big? It looked as large as a surgical device, and for a moment I was taken aback. Then, moonlight poured into the machine. The LED light from the ceiling flowed into the machine and concentrated at its tip. The needle glowed like a jewel as it approached my arm, and following the instructions I closed my eyes. A strange sensation spread through my left arm. It wasn't pain, tickling, or even pressure. It felt as if old grime was being peeled away, my skin rearranging itself and fitting together perfectly. A refreshing, soothing sensation. The light faded, and following the tattooist's gesture, I opened my eyes. The tattoo now had a background. It depicted a deep blue night sky with a full moon painted in a single bold stroke. On the moon's shadow, the characters were engraved. Around them, stars were scattered like a pearl-studded constellation, shimmering faintly. The tattooist stood with her hands on her hips, as if asking if I liked it. With a satisfied smile, the tattooist patted my shoulder before rushing to the counter. When they returned, she held a single pearl in her hand. It looked like it had been taken from the necklace I had provided. The tattooist placed the pearl against the tattoo on my arm, and it sank right in.
Well now. Mr. Roe dear, this is truly fascinating. A pathway has opened. Try gently rubbing the tattoo. You should feel something.
I raised my hand and lightly touched the tattoo, which, as if by magic, showed no signs of swelling or pain. Between the layers of skin, there was a distinct gap. Carefully, I inserted my hand into it. When I withdrew it, I was holding the pearl that the tattooist had placed inside earlier.
Exactly. It seems that the uncharismatic lodge caretaker's contract included providing space as part of the deal. After all, isn't it a servant's duty to provide rooms for their guests? It seems the artist found a loophole in the contract, enabling her to grant you a small space as well!
Does this mean I now have my own little inventory? Is this really happening? My heart raced at this webtoon-like gift, something I'd never expected from a creepypasta.
Let's see! Imagine a cube with a side length of about 2 feet. That's roughly the amount of space that's now connected to you!
Braun used that pesky imperial measurement system, typical of an American ghost story connection. But still, the information was genuinely helpful. So, is this space connected to that lodge? That crazy, murderous lodge should have disappeared by now, though.
It's uncertain. Where it's connected to, no one can say for sure. Only the original contract holder would know what kind of space the lodge caretaker had agreed to provide. It's intriguing, isn't it? This would make for a great bet. What shall we wager for the fun of life?
I would like to politely decline. Still, considering that Moonlight Tattoo Shop never granted abilities harmful to its clients, I decided not to be overly wary and miss out on using this power. At least now I don't have to worry about secretly carrying items anymore. That alone was a huge benefit.
Thank you. This is truly amazing and wonderful.
I returned the pearl I had retrieved, and the tattooist, taking it back, looked genuinely pleased and satisfied.
Is everything settled now?
The tattooist nodded.
Then I'll be on my way.
Just as I approached the entrance, the tattooist seemed to realize something, and gestured for me to stop. She rummaged under the counter with intense focus and pulled out a piece of paper. Carefully wrapping it in a transparent sleeve, she handed it to me. The moment I took it, I realized what it was. It was a tattoo sticker, and it was the exact design I had picked, the tomato tree. There were even 3 of them.
Does this mean, if I wear one of these, I'll temporarily become brave, as if I had received the tattoo?
The tattooist smiled and nodded.
Thank you very much.
The shop owner smiled warmly and waved as if it were finally time to bid farewell. I placed the stickers into my pocket, or rather into the new subspace, and for real this time, grabbed the door to leave. With a polite farewell, the door closed behind me. When I turned back to look, as one would expect from a ghost story, the shop had reverted to a vacant space. Behind the distorted real estate sign in the glass window, the interior was hollow and lifeless. That's how it's supposed to work. Moonlight Tattoo Shop could only be accessed once through the It Is Empty ghost story. Maybe next time, I'll have a chance with a different ghost story.
Ah, what a unique and delightful experience!
I couldn't agree more.
Ro, how was your exploration?
That day, I successfully completed the It Is Empty exploration without any issues and accumulated a decent amount of points. The pleasant aroma from bronze aromatherapy massage lingered for days. As for the enhanced tattoo, it disappeared without a trace the next morning, leaving only the original text on my wrist. Still, the ability it granted remained intact. Let's make good use of it. With thoughts of the possibilities for my inventory, I conducted several experiments. The ability hadn't proven useful even once. Well, I suppose that's normal. When entering ghost stories with manuals, the company usually provided all the necessary items, so there's no real need to smuggle anything in. Additionally, deployments to ghost stories without manuals had significantly decreased. Even the alien shop doesn't have anything particularly portable or worthwhile to go wild over. Ultimately, the ability had been relegated to a mere convenience for carrying existing items more easily. I did discover that it seems to be vacuum sealed, so food doesn't spoil in there. When I placed an analog clock inside, the second hand remained frozen, but a digital clock would get its battery drained completely. The rules were unclear. Still, I hadn't encountered an urgent situation requiring its use. Time passed uneventfully, and I accumulated more points without much fanfare, and without much need to use items or abilities. Still, it's a good thing to have.
3 weeks until the regular personnel announcement.
You'll definitely stay on this squad, right, Ro?
Yes, I certainly hope so.
The hottest topic among D Squad was whether I'd survive the personnel announcement and remain on this squad. As expected from a ghost story company, injuries and scares occasionally cropped up, but I'd become somewhat used to them. Holding on to the tattoo stickers like talismans helped me endure. I'll save these for real emergencies. I was gradually settling into the routine, becoming comfortable with the work and the decent personalities of my squadmates. Naturally, this sense of ease didn't last long. 3 weeks and 2 days later, the atmosphere had changed. There was an eerie calmness in the air. It was the kind of stillness one might feel when leaving a final message for their family during a catastrophe. It was the peculiar serenity of people bracing for tragedy. It was definitely not a good sign.
Well, we're bound to encounter something eventually. It'll be okay. We've all got strong luck on our side.
Supervisor Park Min-seong's attempt at optimism didn't elicit a response from Assistant Manager Eun Ha-jae. The tension was palpable. Instead of my desk, I was directed to the sofa. Sitting across from me, Eunhae placed a tablet PC on the table with a calm expression.
This is the darkness you'll be entering in 3 days.
Why are they giving so much time? When something is scheduled 3 days out, it's usually framed as prepare just in case you're assigned. It's rare for it to be stated so definitively.
12 people will be entering this darkness. It's rated B class. Don't be too alarmed. The survival rate is absurdly high. Plus, the additional points are generous, 2,000 points per person.
Eunhae's expression briefly shifted to one of bitter amusement, as if saying, "You sharp little devil."
And there's a problem. Finding a darkness without issues would be faster, but this one's unique. The simplest way to put it, well, it's a luck-based death game. As soon as you enter, someone is guaranteed to die. Completely random. Pure luck.
The fear of possibly dying. Perhaps that's the essence of ghost stories. Recently, I even experienced a government-managed disaster where someone had to die for the scenario to be theoretically cleared. So I've grown quite accustomed to the idea that people usually die in ghost stories. I've even become a bit desensitized to it. After all, I've managed to squeeze through the needle's eye and survive. Let's figure out an escape route first, no matter how impossible it seems. This had become my default mindset over the past few months.
Initially, everyone disappeared. Only one headless corpse ever came back. But after a few repetitions, someone lucky enough managed to survive and return. Based on their testimony, we pieced together the manual.
This was the standard process for completing a high-level exploration manual.
But there was one thing we could never change. Someone always dies. The mechanism behind who gets chosen. There isn't one. No logic, no pattern. It's completely random. It's happened 37 times so far, and no matter what gear or items are brought in, it doesn't make any difference. And since the designation happens the moment you enter, there's no time to prepare or respond.
This situation was absurd. Literally a game of chance, where I had a 1 in 12 chance of instant death. Including the rest of the squad, the odds were 1 in 3, absolutely ludicrous. Someone would just die.
You might think, why not send someone expendable instead of a competent person like me? Really? Because I sure did. But we don't have a choice. This damned urban legend demands a challenger with a sharp mind to allow for a clear scenario resolution.
In other words, we couldn't just throw away a sacrificial pawn. Assistant Manager Eunhae smirked faintly.
An 8.3% death rate in a B-class darkness is actually quite reasonable.
Think about the exhibition ghost story. That one didn't even have a manual, making it far worse. Even when manuals are complete, fatalities weren't uncommon.
The idea of being trapped in that probability, it feels wrong, so unfair.
It wasn't unusual to feel that way. The difference between dying without a chance to fight back and dying after at least trying is significant. The former feels like slaughter. The latter, a challenge.
Does giving us 3 days mean it's to help us mentally prepare?
After 3 days, your mind cools down, and you start to think rationally and optimistically.
Surely I won't be the 1 in 12. That kind of thought process.
Ro, this must be your first time facing a darkness, right? Go grab a coffee. Get me one too while you're at it.
Taking the hint that I could take my time, I accepted Assistant Manager Eunhae's card and headed out. The coffee errand was probably just an excuse for some mental health management. This is driving me nuts. Now I was leaning back on a cafe sofa, an Americano in front of me. Fear? I wouldn't say that's the issue. I haven't not been scared since arriving here, so that's nothing new. What I felt was unease. Information doesn't matter in this situation. Maybe it's because I realized how much I've relied on having clearer conditions than most employees. It left me with a strange sense of self-reproach and an overwhelming sense of danger. Should I just quit? Wouldn't it be better to leave now and figure out another path? Investigating ghost stories independently using the guide.
Why not consider a career in show business? Oh, absolutely. There's always a spot for you in my world, my friend. Isn't that what friends are for?
I almost fell off the sofa. That snapped me out of it. Yes, in this world there are plenty of fates worse than death. And investigating alone? Only an idiot would forget they're a coward and make such a foolish choice. Quitting over a 1/12 chance of death would be stupid. But doing nothing about it would be equally idiotic.
So, are you going in?
First, I needed to learn more about this ghost story. I returned to the office with the takeout coffees for the squad and began thoroughly reading the tablet PC. It really was random. The ghost story matched what I already knew from the manual, but the problem was that everything I had read was already documented in the manual. There's no new information. I didn't know anything that others didn't. No gaps to exploit. Even in the manual, the description blatantly stated, "Random upon entry." There were no exceptions or suspicious loopholes. It wasn't treated as particularly significant, probably because deaths in ghost stories were common enough to feel unremarkable.
For this deployment, squad leaders are excluded. Only those ranked assistant manager or below will enter.
Chief Lizard wouldn't be accompanying us this time. This was to prevent priority confusion among staff if a squad leader were designated as the sacrifice due to their higher rank.
None from the round-off team or the elite squads would be included either. Last time they went in, it caused a huge mess.
Apparently, during one deployment, an elite squad member from the A, B, or C squads had been designated as the sacrifice. Their desperate attempts to avoid death ended up causing unnecessary casualties, taking down several other employees with them. I didn't regret not being placed on the A squad, but this company was as consistent as ever.
Thank you for letting me know.
Assistant Manager Yoon seemed caught somewhere between resignation and irritation, finding solace in a cigarette as Supervisor Park joined him for a smoke break.
Did you see the roster? The employees going in too?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't even attend some of their funerals. Did they select the lowest ranked based on personality or something?
Hey, at least we're not included.
I kept comparing with the manual, desperately searching for something. A gap to slip through, a small loophole in the rules, and then, unexpectedly that afternoon, a potential way to bypass the rules appeared. Though it came in a slightly different form. Section Chief Lee Byungjin had come to find me. As the manual revisions officer, he wouldn't have come all this way just in passing.
I heard. You're going into that insane Russian roulette ghost story, aren't you?
I had thought it before, but he truly had a knack for irritating people. But Section Chief Lee wasn't here just to make a fuss. After lowering his voice and ensuring no one else was around, he leaned in and spoke quietly.
Why don't you talk to Director Ho about this? Apparently, the director's been impressed by your performance.
If I speak to the director, I'll be excluded from this.
Normally, these things are decided under the guise of fairness, but I'm against that. Someone as talented and promising as you shouldn't have to go. You're a top performer, after all.
A legitimate escape route presented itself. Getting an executive to intervene. I opened my mouth to respond. This was something I absolutely couldn't choose. It would draw too much attention. The moment I accepted that option, I would effectively be picking sides within the company. And in a ghost story company, even the executives were unlikely to be ordinary people. Aligning myself with someone in a desperate, survival-driven manner would be a terrible move, especially since this was a matter of life and death. The moment I'm excluded, rumors will spread like wildfire. It would be seen as selfishness. In any community, earning recognition as a proper member requires sharing burdens. Trying to avoid that would get me completely ostracized. In the field exploration team, where members must constantly operate in squads of 3, actions like trying to exclude myself could wreak havoc on my workplace dynamics. Unless a director intervened to quietly pull me out and later claimed credit for saving me, that wasn't going to happen. The fact that this wasn't the case meant I wasn't important enough to be singled out like that. They believe luck is a kind of skill. In other words, it's a trap. Even if it stung, the right move was to play it straight. I spoke as if I were a principled stickler for rules.
Making an exception for me would be preferential treatment. The company must have reasons for assigning work this way. So I'll take responsibility and follow through.
Section Chief Lee Byungjin stammered, but after asking, "Are you sure?" Several times he finally relented and left. I barely stopped myself from grabbing his pant leg and screaming, "Yes, please save me." Let's just call this character build reinforcement. Because there's no other comfort to be had here. I watched him leave with a bitter smile and returned to my desk. Let's review the manual again. But whether I looked at the or reread the manual, the result was the same. There were no loopholes, There were no exceptions for any of the explorers. Every single one of them was subjected to the random selection. Could this be a loophole? It's just a possibility. But in this situation, it was worth trying any possibility, no matter how slim.
Mr. Roe dear, have you thought of something entertaining?
Not entertaining, but an idea nonetheless. Create an exception. Every explorer who entered this ghost story was subjected to the 112 instant death lottery without exception. But what if there was a shared condition unique to all explorers? Something that had never allowed for an exception before.
What condition are you referring to?
Both the manual and only mentioned humans as explorers. There were no accounts of other living creatures, but in this world, humans weren't the only sentient beings. If we include animals and plants, the possibilities become endless. What if a non-human being could avoid the judgment? Based on the irregular cases I'd read in The Unknown, this seemed like the most plausible exception in the current situation.
Mr. Roe dear, do you wish to stop being human?
No, that's not what I mean. Could he not throw out such pure-sounding yet ominous questions? I just want to be treated as not human for a little while. I carefully chose my words. Like putting on a disguise for a performance. Braun, is that something you could do for me? Braun's voice became more vibrant and enthusiastic, as if he were preparing for a show.
Adopting a new identity is an entertainer's calling. I have countless masks to offer. Oh! I even have one that I could lend you right now!
I tore my gaze away from the manual and leaned back in my chair. Just then, Assistant Manager Yoon and Supervisor Park returned from their smoke break, waving at me as they entered the office. Braun, about that mask ability. Can it work on multiple people?
Multiple people? You mean people other than you, friend?
I mean including myself.
If I can regain a bit more of my former glory, it should be possible. Back in my prime, I could cast entire studio audiences. No! Hundreds of people! Into new roles! Ah, my friend calls on me again!
I patted my pocket respectfully. Let's give you a bath.
Mr. Roe dear, I appreciate the thought, but I'm not an occult-obsessed celebrity who would enjoy bathing in their friend's blood.
Even if he was a quiz show host notorious for blowing up contestants' heads, Braun, as my good friend, was certainly someone I could afford not to doubt. But there was no other way. Even if I somehow procured blood packs from a hospital, the freshness would degrade, reducing their efficiency. I couldn't use someone else's blood, and bringing in a creature from a ghost story like last time wasn't an option. The leftover ginseng wouldn't work either, since whatever made it sentient has already dissipated. That left the obvious choice. I stared into the small, elegant, checkered bathtub. It still looked pristine and smelled pleasant, as when I had first bought from the alien shop. Now, I had to pour my blood into it.
I probably can't give much. Maybe half a cup.
That would be about 180 meter.
Half a cup, a bit tight, but for the small, cotton-filled body I inhabit, it should suffice as a bath additive. Diluted, of course! No, this isn't right. Are you sure about this?
Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the kitchen knife. Next to me was a vial of a wound-healing potion I had brought from the company's medical office. I pricked the flesh of my arm with the upper part of the knife. Blood began to flow, a steady stream indicating I'd struck an artery. Remember, I'm scared of creepy situations, not blood itself. I repeated the phrase like a mantra over and over, trying to calm myself. Eventually, the promised amount of blood, half a cup, had dripped into the tub. That should be enough. But I didn't stop the bleeding.
It seems sufficient, friend!
I quickly used the company's healing potion to stop the bleeding. Its magical effects sealed the arterial wound beautifully. Though I felt a bit lightheaded from the blood loss, it wasn't a big issue. A recovery potion will fix that too. By the time I enter the ghost story in a couple of days, I'd be back to normal. What mattered now was the fragrant aroma wafting from the tub. I leaned closer to inspect the tub, inhaling deeply as the pleasant scent tickled my nose. It seemed my blood had done its job successfully. I must have given about 500 meter. The mixture had transformed into a proper bath solution. It smells like wood? The scent reminded me uncomfortably of that cursed forest ghost story, but at least it wasn't unpleasant or strange. Nodding in satisfaction, I turned to Braun.
You can get in now. How's the scent?
Ah, it's delightful. Quite unique, like your unpredictably whimsical decisions, Mr. Rodeer!
Was that sarcasm? Because I bled more than planned.
Sarcasm is a key trait of any successful talk show host, but I don't wield it indiscriminately.
Thanks for your concern. I'll take care of my recovery. Don't worry. But I won't do this again.
Now that's a wise declaration, friend.
To be honest, I did this deliberately. Giving my good friend a bit of a shock was my way of ensuring he'd feel reluctant about using my blood for baths in the future. And it seemed to have worked. If I'd announced the real amount in advance, he might have just accepted it without a thought. And that wouldn't do. This has to be a one-time thing. I picked up Braun to place him in the tub, but once again he declined.
I shall walk in proudly on my own 2 feet!
I turned away from the tub and soon heard the sound of footsteps and splashing water. Then, after a short while,
Rodeer, this bath solution you've created. It's rather peculiar.
I suddenly found myself receiving a critique of the bath solution I had made with 500 millersil of my own blood from Braun. I almost turned to look at the tub. Keeping my head steady, I asked,
What do you mean by unique?
Exactly what I said! Bath solutions come in various types, don't they? Salt, oil, bubble baths. Yours, Mr. Rodeer, is quite different from the ginseng, though there are similarities too.
Hey, that ginseng came from a ghost story, and I'm a human being. Isn't it obvious that they'd be different?
Oh, I see! Now I understand!
As I heard the sound of the smacking of lips as though tasting fine wine, Braun answered.
Mr. Rodeer, your bath solution is a blend!
In literal terms, it means mixed, a term often used in coffee or cocktails to describe combining ingredients for a new flavor.
That's right. It seems to share some component with the ginseng, though in a different form.
Could this be referring to ghost story contamination? I thought of the security team sergeant, the way his human form had ripped apart and twisted into a wolf-like creature. Was I also beginning to experience the contamination and encroachment of paranormal phenomena?
Contamination? That's such an extreme and negative way to put it. Isn't life a process of change, mutual influence, and transformation? That's where the fun lies!
Instinctively, I glanced down at my body. If there were any visible signs of ghostly influence, it would most likely be...
Do you think the tattoos are the cause?
Tracing the origins of what's already mixed is quite a challenge. There are connoisseurs who can guess a vineyard by tasting a drop of wine, but I've never liked that kind of pretentiousness, even as a talk show host. Anyway, there's no need to worry, Mr. Rodeer. You're not about to meet a new version of yourself next week or anything like that.
Theoretically speaking, that seemed true. Living and working here inevitably means I'll experience some level of ghostly contamination. There was no point in panicking over it. After all, the stronger and more varied one's supernatural abilities become, the greater the risk of being consumed by them. Balancing that risk was essential. Though I don't think I've reached a point where I need to worry about balance yet. Still, it was something I'd have to manage in the future. Luckily, one of the facilities I now had access to as a supervisor specialized in monitoring such changes. I'll visit that place after safely surviving this ghost story.
There's also something particularly unique about your bath solution. Oh, it's all dissolved now.
Braun let out a long, satisfied sigh, as if he had been trying to analyze the bath solution further.
I thoroughly enjoyed it!
At least one of us enjoyed it. That was a relief. The bathtub glimmered with neon lights, flickering briefly as though flipping through TV channels. Braun lounged against the tub's wall, his plush body radiating a lively energy.
Shall we step out now?
I walked over and lifted Braun out of the tub. The plush doll felt oddly more luxurious than before, though the size hadn't changed. Still, Braun's voice sounded sharper, more articulate, more vibrant. I covered the plush doll with a towel, shielding him from view, and asked,
Feeling reinvigorated.
It feels like returning to my prime, when I was most active!
While it wasn't as dramatic a transformation as when I used the contaminated ginseng, Braun had clearly rejuvenated. And when I pulled back the towel covering him, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There was a small scrap of fabric at the back of his neck, where it looked like a tag had once been attached. So there was originally a complete tag here. It seemed to be a remnant recovered during his rejuvenation. I made a mental note of it.
I feel wonderful!
That's good to hear.
After drying off the plush doll, I placed him neatly on a towel-covered table. The preparations were complete.
I have a favor to ask.
Ah! I had a feeling that was coming! After all, how could I refuse a friend who had just prepared a bath for me? You're probably about to ask if I can lend my mask to more people, aren't you?
With Braun rejuvenated, he could now wield more powerful abilities.
Excellent! How many people are we talking about?
Following instructions in the company's notice, I headed to a different location for work. It was an abandoned private kindergarten building, already populated with company personnel.
You're already here.
I greeted respectfully. Standing near the poorly cleaned entrance of the kindergarten, I soon saw my squad mates arrive.
Let's hope it's one of those guys who bites it, not us.
Please, just this once.
Thanks for whispering, though honestly, I don't think anyone would have cared even if you hadn't. Everyone wore the same anxious expression anyway.
Ro, do you see that guy over there with the rabbit's foot? It's supposed to be a lucky charm.
You think? Last expedition, someone wore something similar and still got sent to the afterlife in one hit.
Yeah, Assistant Manager Yoon's right. They say none of those items work here. The selection is fair and unavoidable.
I glanced at Supervisor Park, who, though pale, was trying to force a smile. He looked as if he had braced himself but was still deeply nervous.
Would the company have any issues if I tried something similar? To avoid being picked as the sacrifice?
Preparing some countermeasures to dodge it?
Something like that.
Supervisor Park laughed and patted me on the back.
Oh, Ro, of course not. Everyone does it.
I'd bet my paycheck that everyone here has spent the last 3 days trying every trick in the book to weasel out of this.
Bold words, Assistant Manager Yoon.
How do you think they figured out none of it works? Plenty of people tried and still ended up as the sacrifice.
Why, Ro? Are you planning to try something too?
After a moment of hesitation, I pulled Braun out of my pocket.